Hello and welcome to the video. Some of you that subscribe to the Walksnail stuff via email would have got an email on Friday about something new coming out for the Walksnail system. Now, I got my hands on it and asked them to send me one when I heard of it. This is what it looks like. This is something called the Walksnail Repeater. Now, I asked to be shipped this before I knew exactly what it was, because with all the antennas on it, what I really hoped it was something that could be stuck on a tripod, because it has a little connector here at the bottom, so you can plug it into a tripod and have it stood up. And then what you could do is you could have this on a tripod connected to the goggles via something like ideally a HDMI cable, but things like either just connections into the antenna inputs and get fantastic coverage. Now, I've looked at antenna arrays and things in the past, and it's a great alternative to antenna tracking. However, getting my hands on it here, it's a little bit different. That's actually not what it is. It's more kind of a range extender slash enabler to fly out of line of sight where the signal's going to be blocked. Very basically, the way it's working is that one set of antennas is going to be running on the standard 5.8, bound to whichever model that you're flying, drone, wing, plane, whatever it is. The other side is going to be connected to your goggles, and that is then giving you another roughly 4 kilometers or more of range. Because both sides are kind of running at the same time, the side that's going to be connected to your model is still running at the normal 5.8 gigahertz frequencies that Walksnail run at. However, from the connection on the other side down to your goggles, that's running at 5.2. So the antennas that are on the goggles right now, you'd have to swap out. So let me go through the specs while I unbox it and then talk about my thoughts. So this thing is designed to work with the Avatar VRX and the Avatar Goggles and Goggles X, and it says all Avatar Air Unit products. Interestingly, the Goggles L isn't talked about here, but I guess that makes sense because the Goggle L has the internal antennas that wouldn't allow you to swap them for the 5.2 gigahertz antennas that you'd need to use in order to talk to the repeater. Runs from 9 to 26 volts, so basically 3, 4, 5 S6s batteries. The dimensions are 119.5 by 72 by 18.6 millimeters. Transmission resolution on this thing is 1080p, and then the two 720p settings. Again, communication frequency has two. There is one side that's running at 5.15 to 5.3 gigahertz, and the other side which is running at the more standard 5.5 to 5.85 gigahertz. Transmission power is for FCC configuration 30 dBm and for CE configuration 14 dBm. And you can see here that the standard bits and pieces, you get the antennas for both sides and you also get the unit. Obviously, there's going to be 4 antennas. Make sure you don't mix them up. It's nicely printed on the antennas, which are which, whether there's a 5.2 or 5.8. I do wish it was actually printed on the unit which side was which. I'm probably going to write on this one with a Sharpie because the documentation I've been looking at is a little bit confusing. All LHCP as standard, surprise, surprise. And in terms of how you use it, well, there's some pictures in the manuals which kind of show this thing above a mountain. So you could have it with the thing stuck on top of the mountain. You could fly the other side of the mountain and have the signal relayed to you. Or you could have it at the edge of the normal transmission range from the goggles and then use it as a repeater to get an additional extended bit of range on the other side as well. In terms of how you use this thing, Walksnail have a full video. I'll put a link down below if you want to go and check that out because they kind of walk you through everything. And what you're going to do is, install the antennas onto this thing. Again, making sure you have them the right way round. Bind it to the Avatar unit that's in your model, your quad, whatever. And then you also bind it to your goggles. Don't forget, though, that you're going to have to replace the 5.8 gigahertz antennas that are on your goggles with 5.2 gigahertz antennas. More on that in a moment. And then you set it up and arrange the antennas so that the 5.8 gigahertz side of the repeater is pointing out to where you're going to be flying the drone, and the 5.2 gigahertz antennas are pointing back to where you are going to be stood to fly the thing. To actually configure the goggles, you add a specific line onto the SD card that unlocks this kind of functionality with the latest firmware. And then you get the option to kind of set it up, to configure the transmission power. And also then in the bottom right hand corner, you get additional information about the signals to and from the repeater in your goggles too. It's actually quite a slick system. However, there are a couple of things to note. Now, in the box that we just had a look at, you will notice there were no replacement 5.2 gigahertz antennas for my Walksnail system. And again, I'm not only using the standard antennas on my Goggle X's, I'm also used the faceplate that has the two patches in. All of that is currently set up for 5.8, so I'd have to swap that out. I have asked Walksnail where you get the 5.2 antennas from, and because I can't see them on the website when I had a look when this was released, and I'm waiting for an answer. When I get that, I will stick it in the video description. I'll probably put it in a comment and pin it down below. But obviously those antennas for your VRX, your goggles, are really important. There is a DVR inside the repeater. There's no HDMI out, which I'm a bit sad about. And the repeater doesn't support the 50 megabit high bitrate sharing mode, head tracking, or racing mode. There are no markings on here about which side is which. You can kind of figure it out because it kind of, for the two bind buttons on the side, you can see it's kind of mounted for VTX and VRX. But I really think Walksnail should have actually printed, along with the logo on the top, which side was which, because realistically, you probably, when you put this thing away, you're going to be taking these antennas off. And I'm not sure about why it's actually configured this way, because surely one side you'd want a whole range of antennas to have a big, diverse directional antenna array so you can fly the drone. But on the side that's coming back to the goggles, I would have thought one or two antennas would have been enough, because unless you're driving in a car at the same time, why would you want such a broad transmission pattern to go back to the goggles? And I think that brings me nicely on to the summary. I don't think this is going to be useful for lots of us in the hobby. I think those who want to fly further will use higher gain antennas. And in fact, people have already flown it 20, 30 kilometers using quite sophisticated exotic setups. But maybe it could be more useful for those using the Avatar-based drones for filming, outdoor flying in demanding environments, where that bando-style flying in and out of buildings means that occasionally you'd lose that kind of reception. Somebody has asked for this, and many of us will probably guess that that might have something to do with the dual-use drone systems that are out there at the moment. And Walksnail do need to be careful about manufacturing for that kind of stuff. Lots of the owners of the RC factories out in China have been arrested and put in jail. Well, that's what I've heard, for supplying products that have been used in drones in areas of conflict. I hope in addition to this product, they make what I was talking about at the beginning, which is some form of high gain antenna array that can be used on a pole and potentially then come down into your goggles via something like HDMI or something like just a snaking cable that attaches to the RP-SMA or SMA style connectors on the goggles, whatever you have. That would be incredibly useful, I think, for a lot more hobby-based pilots. But I thought it was useful to make a video just to explain what this was. If you have any questions, please pop them down below and I'll pass them on to Walksnail. But I would expect that this is one of those things that unless you have a very specific requirement, you can't see the point. Thank you for watching my video. Check out the playlist, and adding Pedantry 360 to your search terms will help you find my content. If you haven't done so already, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. You can support the time I spend here answering questions and helping others by using the links in the video description.